So today's going to be an interesting video. I just kind of wanted to take a minute and talk to you guys about what I believe is the current state of Warzone and what is going on with the game. Because overall, I actually think what is going on in Warzone right now is pretty good. I think a lot of things that have added have really improved the game overall. However, there are definitely still some big problems. Now, the specific reason why I wanted to talk about this today is because an ex-Raven employee, Matthew Ventures, actually made a 50-minute long video on YouTube talking about his time at Raven, comparing it to some other jobs that he had, talked about some things that he thought they did well, talked about some things that they thought he could do better, things along those lines. And it's really, really interesting. And the thing that I found most interesting about it is everything that he actually talked about in this ties in with my current opinions of the overall game of Warzone right now and some big problems that are currently there. So I wanted to talk about my opinion on it, talk about what he talked about with those specific things, and kind of talk about where this means for Warzone moving forward. So let me start off and give you some examples as to what I mean. So one of the biggest issues I currently have with Warzone is the bugs. It seems like every single season comes by, they add a bunch of new stuff, but that's kind of brought to a halt because when they put in this new stuff, almost every single time something breaks. A couple of months ago, when there was that meeting between the devs and some content creators, they talked about how the game is very bloated, and because of that, when something breaks, they oftentimes don't know why or what caused it to actually break because there's so many moving parts. Matthew Ventures then went on to explain Warzone like a train, something that is constantly moving, and to fix those bugs, you have to stop the train, take it off the tracks, get underneath it, remove the axles, fix the wheels, and then it can get moving again. But because Warzone is a live service, they can't really do that. In my memory, there's only been one time where the servers have gone offline, people have stopped playing, and then a day later they brought it back with a bunch of changes. I think it was only one time that they have ever done that. And because they can't really do that, they can't reinvent the wheel, if you will, a lot of these bugs, they just kind of have to try to figure out what's going on with them and have to try to fix them while this train keeps moving forward. Imagine how hard it would be to fix a train that is still moving. Very, very difficult. Now, another reason I personally believe that causes this problem is just how many different moving parts there are with this game. With a lot of games, there's 15, 20 different guns and maybe attachments on them. If you look at Fortnite, it's very simple. There's a set of items, and that could be one of the things that causes a problem, one of those items. But in Warzone, there's over 100 different weapons, each of which having around 50 plus attachments. So that's 5,000 different things in that alone could go wrong, not including perks, not including the map, score streaks, movement mechanics, things along those lines. There's a lot of moving parts. So when one thing breaks, when one weapon does too much damage, it could be because one attachment's broken, or it could simply be something down the line. An example of this would be the ability to use extra perks on individual weapons, using 11 perks. It's something that they actually fixed today. There was a weird set of circumstances that you could do, and all of a sudden, your gun was really overpowered. Things like that are always going to happen, but because there's so much in the game, it's not a simple fix. And I think that's something we're going to see kind of cool down once Warzone 2 comes out, because I have a feeling they're going to limit the amount of weapons to whatever comes out in Modern Warfare 2, things along those lines. And if you will, it will kind of limit that bloat and cause a lot less of these bugs. There's an 80 field of view bug, which was in Vanguard when that released. It's now made its way into Warzone. It'll probably take them a while to figure that one out. It's very strange things, and they keep breaking, and I think it's just that bloat causing that, and the devs talking about it are once again backing that up. I talked about this before, but one thing that they added into the game is the zip lines or the redeploy balloons, whatever you want to call them. And as far as those go, I think it's one of the best additions to the game. It makes it be able to play the game so much faster, get from point A to point B, play the game completely different, and things along those lines are things I think are fantastic, and I'm glad that they've added into the game. And that's one of the biggest things that's really brought me back into the game and started playing it more, is specifically those things. Now, there's other things like weapon balance that I think are problems, and we'll talk about that after I explain why I'm talking about this. So one thing that Matthew Ventures said is that he felt like the people working at Raven did not use the internal data gathered through the game enough. So in other words, the data on weapons people are using, the amount of time people are playing specific modes, things along those lines, they didn't use those numbers enough to then determine what they were going to do next with the game. And I think that's a big problem, because then you run into problems like weapons being overpowered. If you don't look at the data, how are you going to know that this weapon should be buffed and in which way? That's a big problem. Now, one other thing that he says is he said a lot of the devs that work there don't even play the game. Now, in and of itself, I don't think that is an issue. For example, I have a friend who is an engineer. He works on airplanes. This guy has never been on an airplane, but he knows a lot about airplanes. He knows how they work, how they fly, things along those lines. And he's given data by individual companies or whoever he is working for about things like the comfort of the airplane, the way it flies, the data that the airplane gives back to them. And then he uses that to make stuff better. But if he didn't listen to that data and he's never been on an airplane, he couldn't do his job very well. So in and of itself, I don't think that's a specific problem that some of the devs don't play the game. But if they're also not listening to the data that they're getting back from the community and literally stats from the game, that is where you get an issue. And there's been things in the past like game modes that have been brought in that people absolutely love that we don't see for months. And I think that's the reason why. I think they have to take that, use that data, and project what they're going to do moving forward. And this is followed up by another important thing that Matthew Ventures said, is he said that he didn't think that they reused content enough. The thing that he specifically talked about is he worked on the Christmas trees for the Christmas event. He said that they could have used those for a Valentine's Day event, hearts on the map, or whatever you want to talk about, but they didn't. Because why? Instead, they didn't really do anything for the game. And that's a problem in and of itself. The lack of new content, it's a problem that we had in Verdansk. It's a problem that we now have in the Caldera. There's weeks and sometimes months that go by with very minuscule and maybe just game mode changes to the game. And people get bored of it because of that. If we look back to Fortnite in its heyday, Fortnite had essentially new mini events every single week with the way their battle pass worked. You could do different things on the map, have to complete different things. And because of that, people would come back at least every week to do these things. Warzone doesn't have that. They tried it with the intel, and I loved that. That was one of my favorite things from Warzone. But now, nothing along those lines. We just wait for that mid-season update, wait for that next season. Inevitably, that season comes out. Things break because the game is bloated. It's a big problem, but I'm still having fun playing the game. And I think what that comes down to is, one, they've made it a lot more fast-paced with those redeploy balloons. The gunplay is still very, very good. Even though things are breaking, to me, it's not completely game-breaking, even though there are moments where things are pretty bad, like people are invisible and stuff. And yes, that gets frustrating, and yes, I would play more if they weren't there. But as of right now, I'm enjoying playing the game. But it has me worried moving forward for the next 6 months or so until the next Warzone comes out. What's going to happen every single time they add an update? Is it going to break the game, or is it going to be something good, or is there going to be nothing altogether? Now, one thing that he said about the development team is he said that they are very small. In comparison to something like Fortnite, another live service game, the Raven team is very small compared to that, and that could be one of the reasons why we're not receiving enough new content. Now, with the acquisition by Microsoft, they have a lot more resources. They could really blow up the team at Raven and really, really expand what we are seeing. And maybe we will get that weekly stuff, but it's hard to do weekly new stuff when every time new stuff comes in, things break. So that is the information we got from this. There's really no solid conclusions I wanted from this. I just wanted to get the information out there and kind of start off the conversation because I want to hear what you guys have to say about this. And if you are Matthew Ventures, if you want to do an interview on the channel, I have a million questions for you. So I'll be reaching out to you if you want to do a video. I would really enjoy that, and I think people would find it pretty interesting. So that's all I have for you today. Let me know what you think down in the comments. If you enjoyed, hit that like button, subscribe to stay up to date on all my videos. That's what I had to say about it. Let me know what you think. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Until next time, peace out. We are